Hey everyone. The other day I was chatting to somebody and the age-old question came up of why does bad things happen to good people? Because I've met a lot of people recently who seem to be really affected by coronavirus. Whether it's those who've lost their jobs, you have people in our church who've lost family members to the virus. We lost a really good friend in Pastor Edwin to the virus as well. And those questions go around our head is, why do some people survive it? Why do other people don't survive it? Why do nurses and doctors who commit their lives to saving people, why have they caught it and died? Whereby other people who seem to be reckless seem to get away with nothing and minor symptoms. And that question doesn't just go for coronavirus, it actually goes for a wider scope, a lot more questions we have in life. Because life just sometimes seems a bit unfair. It doesn't seem right. Why do we get so much in the West where other people, other parts of the world suffer with so little? And these questions go on. And then you always have the few people who throw a little bit in, like the really super spiritual people who tell us that nothing bad should ever happen to us because God's on our side. But the reality is, I've learned is that bad stuff seems to happen to good people and bad stuff seems to happen to godly people as well. And those questions go round our head over and over again. And in our church recently, we've been looking at Revelation 2 and 3, the churches that Jesus gave messages to. And most of the churches that Jesus gives messages to in the book of Revelation, they're normally telling them, guys, you're doing some stuff well, but you're doing some stuff wrong as well. But there's one church in particular, the church in Smyrna, Revelation 2 verses 8 to 11. And this is a church where Jesus says, guys, you're doing everything right. Everything's great. You're serving me. You're loving people. You're looking out for people. You're spreading the good news of the gospel. But he said, guys, a tough time is coming. He said, even though you're doing everything I've called you to do and everything right, tough times are coming. And some of you are going to suffer persecution that's so bad, in fact, that people are going to die. But in the middle of his warning, he says this, but while this is happening, he says, don't be afraid. Be faithful. Don't be afraid, be faithful. And it seems such a strange thing to Jesus to say to them, don't be afraid, be faithful. Because why? Because the thing that happens when persecution comes, when bad times comes, often the thing that happens first is that we get scared. And the next thing that happens is we can lose our faithfulness. We can lose our faithfulness to each other. We can start questioning people. We can start asking why. And our relationships can break down. And often that comes out of our fear. It's interesting to see in Wuhan, in China, where this outbreak first happened. One of the biggest results when people came out of isolation was the divorce rate went through the roof. Because faithfulness goes in tough times. And Jesus calls us when things get tough, even when we have not done anything wrong ourselves and we question things. He said, guys, he says, don't be afraid, be faithful. And those are the two, I've been wondering, why is he asked us to do those things? And actually there are two things that was what he goes through right now, what he's feeling right now for us. Jesus is not scared right now of the situation we go through because he sits above the storm, as it says in Psalms. And he's not afraid. And even when things get really tough and we want to know why, Jesus is still faithful to us. He is still with us. You know what? We can question the whys and wants of life. And the reality is we're only understanding things from a small human perspective. But God's understanding things from a massive, outside the universe perspective. And sometimes when we go through the hard times, we're not going to get the answers that we want. We're not going to get the results that we want. But we need to be brave and we need to be faithful. We need to look to Jesus. And it's hard. It's not easy. And those questions are still going to want to go around our head. And I had a situation a couple of years ago now, where I went through a really hard time. And at the time, I remember I was just outside my house walking my dog and I just screamed at God. And I was like, God, why? This just seems so unfair. This doesn't seem right. And I was bawling my eyes out. I was just shouting at him. I was saying, God, why? The questions just came out. I was pouring my heart out to him. And honestly, God didn't give me any answers. I went through, I went and sulked, I got depressed. But the thing I did was I plodded. I put one foot in front of another foot and just kept going. And about a year later, I was walking at the same spot, and for some reason, may have been God, it might just have been my memory, I remembered what I said to God 2 years earlier, or a year earlier. And I saw how God had taken a situation that was really bad and how he had turned it around to something that was amazing and taught me so much through it. And guys, the church in Smyrna, he says, when you're faithful, when you're not afraid and you push through even unto facing death, he said there'll be a reward and something good coming out of it the other side. But the problem is when you're going through the storm, it doesn't feel good. It feels hard. But when we get to the other side, we'll be able to look back and say, you know what? God has been faithful to me. God was with me when I was most scared I've ever been. And I want to encourage you today, guys. Don't be afraid. Be faithful. And as I keep saying in these videos, if you're a Christian, you know that Jesus is with you. And if you're not a Christian, you don't know about this faithfulness of Jesus. He's available to you. And he's saying to you right now, you may be asking questions. You may be scared, you may be frustrated, you may be angry. But he said he's still faithful. He's still there. He still wanted to guide you through the storm. And if you're going through that position today and you're feeling that way today, I'm praying for you. I want to encourage you to send me a message on Facebook or an email. The email address will be below the video. Don't be afraid. Be faithful, for the Lord your God is with you.